Hey guys, today I'm painting on black watercolour paper. I want to tell you a bit about black watercolour paper while I paint a jellyfish. These paints that I'm working with are called Gansai Tambi. It's a set of 6 pearl colours. They come with really pretty names like pearl pink, white gold. So I'm actually painting here with white gold, even though it looks incredibly like silver. It's actually called pearl white. The other names are all like pretty pearl scarlet red, pearl lemon yellow, pretty stuff like that. It's a bit irrelevant, I think, when you're painting with lots of colours. You need to be thinking about them as a red or a pink or a green, and does it work with the palette that you're working with? Does it work with your subject matter? That kind of thing. So here I am painting this jellyfish, and I'd painted it previously on white watercolour paper. That's just a cheap piece of white watercolour paper from Kmart, and it had worked really well. It's a great subject matter for watercolour because you can spray it and use wet in wet techniques, as well as techniques where you draw the brush down for those tentacles and spray the tentacles. All of those techniques you'll see me use later on this particular jellyfish. But I began painting, and there's a certain point in the video where I realise that I am not thinking about my paper being black. I'm just painting as though I'm painting any sort of subject matter, which I do all the time on white watercolour paper. So I begin with what is called actually white gold, even though I think it just should be called maybe pearl silver or something. I think it would be a more appropriate name. Anyway, I begin painting the jellyfish's head and the tentacles, and I'm just doing lots of wet in wet. You can see me dipping my brush constantly back into the water to drag the paint around. A bit of interesting facts about Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolours. They are Japanese, so as with many Japanese products, they're beautiful quality. And they are solid watercolours, and often we refer to them as pans, watercolour pans, but they are high quality, so they're non-toxic. The website says that they're highly opaque as well, lightfast, xylene-free, I've got no idea what that means, and odourless, so that's true. They didn't have any sort of smell, neither good nor bad. So, but they are beautiful quality. So that is going to set them apart from other cheap watercolours. So in the other video, I painted a landscape in watercolour using the cheap watercolours from Kmart. Now, the problem with the Kmart watercolours is that they're not going to be light fast. They're not going to be good quality. So back to what I'm doing here with the jellyfish is that I'm continuing to paint but using the colours from my palette. So I've included some ultramarine blue, and because the jellyfish was really wet, I'm just slowly dragging little bits of that blue through the jellyfish, those tentacles, to make them just move about a little bit. I love what spraying does to watercolours. I love that it gives you that loose effect. I also love how I find it makes the painting look a little less contrived. You're going to have to forgive the fact that I'm talking away there to the video, because I did make the video originally with me talking and commentating what I was doing, and then I found later on that the audio was corrupted. Thus, I'm now redoing the audio, and it'll be so much better because I've redone it. So at this point, I'm like, okay, here's my problem. I'm thinking traditionally. I'm thinking where it's white, add some water, where it's dark, add some paint. And in fact, you need to be thinking about the opposite. All the darks need to be whites, all the whites need to be darks, and that's why at this point I whip out some white gouache. That brand is Araldo di Pialo. It's quite cheap but very effective, and this is when I start to continue to paint. And where it's dark on the original jellyfish, I'm now adding the white. of the gouache. It's always interesting to see my painting in retrospect, because there are so many things that I'm painting now where I think, oh, stop, oh, leave a little gap. It's so easy to be harsh with myself as I'm watching myself repaint something. I would always do it differently when I paint it the next time. I love to live and learn, and I think that's why painting is so endlessly fascinating, is that you're constantly learning. The thing about these metallic paints, although Kuretake Gansai doesn't call them iridescent, but I think they could so easily be called metallic paints. I think that they could also be called iridescent paint, and really all they've done is take some watercolour paint and add some sort of reflective medium into it. And this means that they shimmer, and they are brilliant on black watercolour paper, especially if you love a little sparkle. But you could, if you wanted to, just use your white gouache and mix it with any of your watercolour paints. I don't own more than one tube of gouache because white is all you need, and you can just mix any colour into your white gouache. Other things that work well on the black watercolour paper are metallic pencils. They can look absolutely divine, as well as white gouache. And you could in fact use any white medium, white ink, white acrylic. I don't like to use acrylic when I'm using my watercolour brushes because they're specialty brushes, my watercolour brushes, and I hate the idea that a paint that's based in an acrylic plastic polymer would affect my watercolour brushes, so that's why I tend to not use them. That's also why I've put my gouache in a separate little soy sauce dish. So convenient, those soy sauce dishes. But I keep the white gouache separate because, again, I don't want it on my palette. I don't want to accidentally have some sort of medium mixing with my watercolours accidentally, because white gouache is opaque. And the beauty of watercolours is that they are beautifully transparent. So I'm painting the jellyfish, and I realised at a certain point that I'd been calling the jellyfish arms and legs, for want of a better word, I'd been calling them tentacles, but they're in fact called tendrils, or oral arms, believe it or not. And here in Australia, we've got two incredibly poisonous jellyfish, and I'll come back to those in a moment, because I just wanted to let you know that I'd switched here to the beautiful blue in the Gansai Tambi called Pearl Cobalt Blue. Doesn't really look like cobalt blue in the packet, but it's pretty. That's all that matters. And at this point, I'm just enjoying myself. Because I had spritzed all 6 of the Gansai Tambi pans, it means that they're available to me. So all I had to do was wet my brush, and instantly the paint will load. And I'm looking here into my bucket because it was shimmering non-stop. That's all the iridescent medium that's mixed in with the paint. And when I was mixing my brush, it was swirling around as well as being reflective. It was incredibly pretty to watch. So the other thing I want to tell you about Australian jellyfish, just while I'm adding final little details there, is that we've got the blue-ringed octopus, the small box jellyfish, also called the irukandji. I don't know how to pronounce that. And we also have the box jellyfish. We have 3 incredibly dangerous jellyfish. I think most of them are off the east coast of Australia. I don't know. Someone might know more about jellyfish than me. At the moment, I'm tipping that watercolour up and down because I love what happens accidentally, and I'm blowing on the paint as well. It just softens up the edges of the paint and gives lines that you wouldn't get if you were sitting and using a brush. And I think that's my most favourite thing to do. In Australia, we have more incredibly dangerous animals than just 3 types of jellyfish as well. So at this point, I'm just saying how grateful I am that you would watch me, and please give me a thumbs up if you got anything out of this video. I really appreciate it. The last thing I'd like to leave you with is a tip about watercolour, black watercolour paper, and it does not like masking tape. It rips off bits of the masking tape. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. See you next time. Bye.